Good afternoon, this is Michael Jimenez, and this is my assignment 2 demo video for Ronkai's CGDD 4003 course. Jumping right in, if we're looking at the first requirement, we see I have my two cameras, my tracking camera, which gives this perspective, or I guess you can see it right here, and this perspective. Now the idea is that this tracking camera gives it a first person perspective, and it'll be like a FPS, like the old Doom games, Wolfenstein, stuff like that. While the scrolling camera here um, gives a perspective of a top-down space shooter, kind of like Galaga, um, Ikaruga, stuff like that. So immediately you may notice that the camera depth has been altered for these cameras. The scrolling camera has the -1 value, the tracking camera has the -2 value. So what this means is that in game, the tracking camera is going to be rendered first, but then the scrolling camera is going to be rendered first, but then the tracking camera is going to be rendered afterwards. Um, and when you hear that, you might think when you see in game, you might see the other game over here, because you can actually even see it very slightly in the scene editor. But obviously, what I just showed, when you go into the game, it's not there. Well, that's because of requirement 3, where the culling mask is. For the culling mask, I have all of these game objects are under the layer tracking, while all of these objects are under the layer scrolling, because these objects I have placed in the scrolling, section of the game, and these are all objects I have in the tracking section of the game. Now, the thing about all the items not showing up and the importance of the layer is that you can see in the camera preview that it has this black area, it has this track, and it has this spaceship you can see. Well, the reason for that is because the only thing that's on the layer for the scrolling camera, for this camera to see, is the camera itself, which is just to associate it with it, the scrolling plane, which is just this plane that it moves on, and the spaceship itself. So you can see that while on this camera it's not rendering the skybox, because the clear flags does not include the skybox. And again, the culling mask is set to the scrolling. So in combination with the culling mask being set to scrolling and the layer mask being set to scaling, makes it so you can only see this part of the game, and vice versa for the tracking camera. While if you go into game, you can see the different trees that I have. You can see this little enemy that is supposed to move along this Bezier curve that you can see right here, but unfortunately I was unable to get it to move along the track of the Bezier curve. And in my code, I think it shows the issue of why, that I just have to refine the code a little more, because the code that I have simply makes the Bezier curve, which it makes it well, it's just it doesn't make it in a way that is viable to move it along the points, I believe, is the issue. And I mean, the thing is, you see, the reason I said it's made well, quote unquote, is that, I can move it and it adjusts accordingly. Um, the enemy, stays here because in the code it starts at this position, but I can't get it to move along the line or the curve actually. Um, but again, the game, it has this perspective where you can see these palm trees when you look around. The enemy that would ideally be moving along this Bezier curve, and you can't see this area over here because it's not rendered. Um, and that's pretty much my game and its requirements other than the code. Thank you for listening and have a good afternoon.